Okay, just give me 1 second here.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, so um, let's go to. We already did this one,
We stopped at jingoist, if I'm not mistaken.
right? I have a new one, actually. We're not using the same one. I misspoke earlier. I want to talk about, or no, it is okay. I see. I added it onto this. All right, so um, we'll do one more from the old list, and then I have something new to talk about, which is this taxonomy. And do you know what taxonomy is?
I only know about like the taxing system, but taxonomy.
Oh, different. Taxonomy is a system where you organize things based on their importance and how they relate to each other. So, like in biology, you have taxonomy, right? So, like, okay, does it have wings? Yes. So it's either an insect or a bird or a bat.
That's mean you're talking about like categorization or
Yes,
classification.
correct. Um, it's like basically organizing things into similar categories. Categorization.
I mean they have very
But
they are pretty close to each other, but you need to like find the very detailed difference. Is it?
right, but the difference is that taxonomy is specifically talking about things that are more important or more specific than other things. Like here you have remember, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, create for teachers. Like
Mm,
this is a learning pyramid. The idea being that at the bottom, these are like more broad, easier forms of learning, like basic forms of learning. And
mm.
then to create something that's a more specific, refined form of learning. We'll talk about it in a second. So let's start here. Um, we talked about success. So should we respect all the opinions and ideas? It should just say all, not all the. Should we respect all opinions and ideas even if they are deemed harmful? What do you think?
Harmful in the sense of being harmful to me or to the society?
To society.
Hmm. I would say it depends. Depends on the voting system or the polls. I'm actually fine with anything. Just
Okay.
I follow the
What if someone
majority.
what if someone says I want to kill the president or I want to kill the prime minister?
I don't. I think this is not possible. I don't think so. I mean, it's possible. Like this is a little bit too extreme.
So you think that people should or should not be allowed to threaten to kill people?
Uh, I think they don't dare to. They are just talk. They are just saying, and I don't think so. They are going to plot against the country. Plot against the country. Can I say that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's quite common though. It's common for people to get in trouble for saying they're going to do something.
Yeah. Like
Like,
we always curse a lot. We always curse a lot. Like we curse the government or anything, but we don't really do anything.
okay, what about a more like the word is banal. Banal is like having to do with everyday things. So a more banal example, let's say you're on an airplane or let's say you're going through security to get on an airplane and someone says, "I have a bomb." And then they say, "Oh, I'm just joking." Is that should that be allowed?
Uh, I think this is I think it will be serious if let's say that person is a stranger and then I think I think it's not allowed because
Right.
a lot of YouTubers they are trying to like make contents. They always like want to do social experiment. So yeah, I think it's pretty dangerous. Sometimes
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
they think they won't get into trouble, so they just make a lot of um harmful content just to get viewership.
Yeah, I didn't think of the YouTuber angle, but you're right. A lot of them do stuff like that. Um, so what about? Plus, I don't know if saying I have a bomb is really an opinion or an idea. It's just a joke, a bad one, or a statement. So I guess you feel like people should be able to express opinion. They should be able to express, excuse me, opinions and ideas,
Um,
but they have to have some kind of meaning behind them.
mm,
Like an opinion like I don't think that the government is correct. You should be able to express that. And
mm, mm-hmm.
okay.
Because I don't think so it will happen anyway.
Well, I think it depends on the society.
Um,
But so if it were to happen, hypothetically, you would support it.
uh,
Not not support the idea, but support their freedom to say whatever they want as
uh,
long as it's not
I don't think
gonna hurt.
so. I think if it goes overboard, then it is not a good thing.
Okay, but what is going overboard here?
Overboard,
Like,
it means
where do
it.
you draw the line?
Hmm?
Where do you
Yeah.
draw the line, to use an idiom? Like, where's the line between what's something that's normal and something that's overboard?
I'm not very sure because I used to see this word. I used to listen to this word, but I'm not very sure about the meaning. Overboard. Can I use the word overboard? That's mean like
It
get
means literally it means to fall off of a ship.
all
That's where it comes from. Literally, it means to go over the boards. The boards are the wood that made. Well, on an
Mhm.
old ship, the deck was made out of wood. So to go overboard would mean to go off the ship. Like just like you board a ship, boarding an airplane, right? It
Mhm.
means to go on. So to go overboard would mean to go off into the ocean. So if you take that and you expand it into the modern meaning, when we say something goes overboard now, we're saying they take it too far.
Take it too far.
Hmm.
Like for example, like the joke that you make is went too far.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, like saying like, "Oh, I'm going to kill your family." Oh, I'm just kidding. Then maybe that's
Oh,
going
okay.
overboard, right?
Like for example, like my friend cursed me, but they curse my family too. Then they are also going over. They also went overboard.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
exactly. So, where do you draw the line between what is going overboard in this situation? Like, can you give me examples of things that are okay, opinions and ideas that would be okay, and then what's overboard, what's too far?
Mm, like what I say just now.
Okay,
Like
threatening people's life.
yeah, threat. If you like your joke, sometimes if your joke tends to be very insulting, then that's mean you went overboard.
Right. I agree with that. Okay, so let's go into the main body of today's lesson. So we're going to talk about. Oh, and my computer's being weird. Give me a moment.
Mhm.
Okay. So we're going to talk about this taxonomy. Is it too small for you to see or?
No, it's normal for me.
Okay, cool. I'm going to blow it up a little bit. So
Can
Bloom's
can I
taxonomy,
ask you a question? Like, why
Sure.
Westerners they always say cool when cool means
it came from the 1960s and 70s
and
where
also what is the difference between cold and cool?
cool is more of a positive thing. Like there was a cool breeze blowing. It means like enough to keep you from getting hot, but not enough to make you like shake and be cold,
Oh,
right? Like yen in Thai, but I don't know any Malaysian or anything that any other language that you understand. Uh,
I'm just curious.
they actually use this in Thai too. Like they say like jai yen yen, like it means literally like cool heart, but it means like calm down, like take it easy.
Oh, I see.
So to be cool as an adjective is like to kind of like not get upset about things. And because Americans especially love like people that don't get upset about anything, then it became just sort of a generic way to say that something is good, right? Or like
Generic word
generic means like um
substitute.
losing the original meaning.
Oh, okay.
So
Because
like it just means like okay, that's cool. It mean many different things. That's cool would mean that's good,
mm,
or that's cool with me would mean that's fine by me,
okay. Because from
or
what I
cool
know,
like I used it means like great, like
cool.
moving on, great, moving on, cool.
Oh, okay. Because from what I know, because I used to study pharmacy, so I heard of the word generic drugs. So
Yeah,
generic means like they copy the um patented drugs, right? And then
yeah,
they
right. It means it
manufacture
doesn't
it.
have a brand anymore, or yeah,
Yeah.
it doesn't have a patent. The patent's expired, so they can have a generic version. So
Is
like
it patent or patent? Like because sometimes
patent,
huh?
patent,
Patent.
not patterned. Yeah.
There are some Westerners, right? Like they say water, right? I want to drink water. So they say water.
Oh yeah, the accent.
Oh, okay.
The British accent is gonna leave off the final consonant. So water becomes water, and
Oh,
like park, they lose the r's basically. So park becomes park.
oh, I see. But yours one is the American slang, right? You speak in American slang, right?
Yeah, yeah, I would say, but mostly when I'm speaking with you, I'm not using slang. If
Or
I was
just
using,
standard one?
if I were to use slang, it would be pretty. I don't know. American slang isn't super complicated, but you can make it hard to understand if you only use slang.
Okay, cool.
Cool. Okay, so Bloom's taxonomy is a way for teachers to classify these different levels of understanding of learning. So these are educational levels.
Mhm,
So at the bottom you have what? Remember, which is to recall facts and basic concepts.
mhm.
Then what do you have above that?
You mean my thoughts?
So just read the pyramid for now, and then we're gonna
Okay.
talk about it.
So starting from the bottom, we have to remember first, remember the concepts and
Hmm.
recall the facts and basic concepts, define,
Right.
duplicate, list, memorize, repeat, and state something. And then
Right.
next one, after we remembered something, then we need to try to understand the ideas or the concepts, classify, describe, discuss, explain, identify, locate, recognize, report, select, and translate. Mean
Good.
translate into our own mother
No.
tongue, like use our own words.
Translate between different types of ideas. So like, can you translate this into, how to say this?
How to say this, or how do I say this?
How to say this? It's like a hypothetical. How to say this? You would say, like translate it into some, like let's say I tell you something that's very tricky,
Mm-hmm.
and then you decide to translate it into words that you understand better. It
That's
doesn't necessarily mean, it's almost like a way of simplifying. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're changing between two languages.
that's mean I still use the same language, but I
Right.
try to use my own words to
Yes, yes.
reconstruct the sentences in a much simpler way,
Yep,
about like in which I can understand.
correct.
Oh yeah, and how do we use the word whereby?
Whereby
Yeah,
it's a transitory word, so
transitory word. This mean while.
whereby, no, it means like, let me use it in a sentence. The process, it basically means where. The process whereby cocoa beans are transformed, processed, I should say processed, let's say processed into coffee. Okay,
Okay,
so
so
the
you are.
process whereby, it's like, say, it's a fancier way of saying where, basically.
Mhm. Okay. Oh yeah, and one more thing, can I like learn about the usage of who, whose, whom
Sure.
from you? Because I'm still very um confused with that.
Right. In general, when you can think of whom as a receiving word, so like, it came to whom, you're asking a question, and whose as more of a,
It came from whom?
yeah, it came from whom, and
Or
then,
we say where does it come from?
yeah, right.
It's the same
So
thing.
yeah, same meaning. And then you could say whose whose is this, meaning like choosing from a group of people, whose cup is this, right?
Oh yeah, belonging. This is
Right.
fine, but whom, I seldom heard of the word whom.
Whom. Example, let me actually go down so we
Can
don't
I
mess up.
say whom do you call, or to whom you call?
That you would say who there.
Who?
I would use who there, not whom. Hold on a second.
To whom,
We could say whom if you wanted.
like I used to see, can I say to whom are you calling?
To whom are you calling? Yeah, but I would just say who are you calling?
Who are you calling?
Because this is antiquated. It's like out of date.
Okay.
It makes it sound like you're 50, 60, 70. It makes it sound like you're 100 years old if you say to whom are you calling? It's like, yeah, it's obsolescent, meaning it's not used very much.
Sorry? What did you say? Obsolete. Is it?
Not obsolete. Obsolescent means, I think I spelled it there. Obsolescent means that
Not relevant.
it means that it's not obsolete yet, but it will be obsolete soon. Like between like relevant and not relevant, so obsolescent.
That's mean in the middle.
Yeah, going out of style basically. So in other words, I would say you who are you calling?
Who are you calling?
But I don't think there's no grammatical problem with saying to whom are you calling.
Okay. Going to
So,
style.
but for whose is pretty easy,
Yeah, like whose pencil is this?
right?
Whose laptop is this? We always put object at the back, right? After whose.
Let me think. I have to think about that. I believe so. Yeah. Whose is usually going to go before the object, and then the whom you can say you could say who did she give her pencil to, or you could say she gave her pencil to whom,
She gave her
right?
pencil to whom?
Whom here is like standing in. It's a
To
question word standing in for where you would normally put a pronoun or a noun. But honestly, I would just stick with who did she give her pencil to. Again, this is another one that's sort of obsolescent. I don't think I've ever heard someone use that, or
we seldom
maybe I've,
use the word whom, right? We seldom
yes,
use.
correct, seldom used. But
Okay.
you should know how it works. It's good to know. Um,
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. Okay, here's an example that's actually used pretty often. To whom it may concern.
To whom
So
it
this is a common way to start a letter when you don't know the subject, whether it's male or female or their name. So let's say I'm writing a letter to Apple Computers and I don't know who exactly I'm sending it to. I would just let's say my problem is that my laptop is having a problem. So let's pretend this is like 20 years ago before everyone just used live chat and phone calls.
Mhm.
So let's say I'm writing a letter and I just say, to whom it may concern, I'm writing to inquire about my, and it could be anything. I guess in this case, a broken screen.
Okay, that's we use this to whom it may concern instead of like dear someone,
Yes, correct. So
because
if
like
you were
that's
writing about a job, like let's say you wanted a job with a certain firm, then you don't know which department, it would probably go to human resources, but you would say to whom it may concern. And that way they'll automatically send it to whoever it's relevant to. So that's still used. People still start letters with to whom it may concern. And even emails.
like the admins will actually send the email to all of the students, like if let's say they want to like ask the students to settle the payment, the tuition
Right.
fee, then they will write the same thing too. Or
Right.
they don't say dear students, right?
Their students, or no, they wouldn't say dear students. They want to, or they could, but in this case it's more specific.
Oh, okay.
So your options would be to say like dear or to whom it may concern.
We don't say to dear students who owe money.
No, right.
It's right. Okay.
Yeah, that would be funny, but no.
Okay.
To whom it may concern is a polite way to say I don't know who this is supposed to go to. right? Because you wouldn't say dear whoever this is supposed to belong to, or dear whoever this is relevant to. And we can also use whom as whomever, but that again, this isn't really used anymore. Whomever,
Okay.
super rare.
Never seen this one before.
They're basically whom has been sort of replaced by who, but there are still cases where it's useful.
Mm, okay, got it.
But
Thank you.
other than teaching, I don't think it's super relevant, but it's always nice to know in case your students ask. Okay, so uh, we have apply, which is to use information in new situations. So execute, implement, solve, use, demonstrate, interpret, operate, schedule, sketch. I don't know why interpret is it in here. It has the same meaning as translate. So let's just stick with the words in bold. So apply means to use information in new situations. What about analyze?
Analyze, draw connections among ideas,
Uh huh.
differentiate, organize, relate, compare, contrast, distinguish, examine, experiment, question, and test.
Okay, and above that,
Like we are trying to blend in all the concepts that we have learned. Like let's say we learned about like the respiratory system together with the blood circulatory system, and we can just um use our logic or maybe do some certain tests to check the connection, whether to connect both systems together.
hmm yeah.
Mm. Yeah,
So
and then
justify. Well, I think you're kind of getting it mixed up with analyze, right? So
analyze.
analyze is when you draw connections among ideas. So like when you're up to evaluate, you have to be able to, okay, I'm going to tell you uh, a situation and you have to evaluate that situation and then decide whether the facts support it or not. Or an example of something a teacher could do would be to say like, okay, student A, I want you to argue in support of this thing, and student B, I want you to argue against this thing, and let's see what your supporting facts are, or let's see how you debate this.
Hmm.
Okay?
Okay.
I'm not supporting Bloom's taxonomy, and I'm not saying that it's not good. I'm just I'm introducing you to this taxonomy so that we can discuss it. Okay, what about create?
That's the hardest thing to do.
Right. So produce new or original work.
Yeah.
All right. So
I don't understand what is the meaning of conjecture.
conjecture.
Conjecture. Yeah.
It's to conjecture is making statements that are based on inference rather than fact. So saying that something's conjecture means that you don't actually have evidence for it, but because you understand the situation, you can sort of make a statement. For example, um, conjecture. Um, I could say, okay, in my class, I have some girls and some boys, and I think that girls are better at English. Why? Because do you actually have facts to support that? Not really. The girls do better a little bit, but you use conjecture, right? Like you have some evidence, maybe, like you have evidence that, oh, the girls score a bit higher on tests, but you don't know that that's actually why. You don't know that it's such a small sample size, right? Um, or even something with no facts at all to support it. For example, like you could say, "Oh, I think Americans are louder than Asian," but that's just conjecture because we don't actually we there are some you can say, "Okay, well, the cultures are a lot different and people tend to be more outspoken in the Western cultures." So,
Mm.
anyway,
Okay.
hopefully that makes sense. Conjecture is just they're statements that aren't based on hard evidence.
Based on hard
Like,
evidence.
yeah, it's like it's a good way to like come up with new ideas.
But
Think about brainstorming.
okay.
Okay.
Mm-mm.
All right. So, and conjecture is a noun, by the way.
Noun. Yeah.
Anyway, so I don't know why, because they have all these verbs: design, assemble, construct, develop, formulate, author, investigate. Author, I think, is being used as a verb here. I don't know why conjecture is being used there since it's a noun.
Oh yeah.
Um,
And how about appraise? I'm sorry. Appraise.
appraise is to decide the value of something.
Decide the value of something. Okay.
It can mean there's two ways of using appraise. It can mean literal, like literally, you could say, "I'm appraising your house," and I appraise your house at 1.2 million US dollars. That's the
Why
value
don't
of your
you say
house.
estimate? Like,
Yeah, right. But appraise is specific to deciding the value of something. It's more specific than estimate.
that's mean
Like,
like the bank, the banker, they appraise the
right,
value of
they
the
appraise
house.
your thing. It could be anything. Like when people have an auction, you know what an auction is?
Mm-hmm. You
So
sell,
all
use.
right, the auction house has an appraiser, and the appraiser's job is to look through each item and give it a value before the auction. That way, when they start the auction, they have a value that they
Mm,
can, build off of. Okay,
okay.
so the next thing would be the non-literal way to use appraise. So to appraise an idea is to look at that idea and then decide whether it's valuable or not.
It's valid or not?
Yeah, valid or valuable, sure. But
Mm.
like, so I wanted to use valuable because we were talking about money, right? When we literally appraise something, we literally give it a monetary value.
Or
Like
appraise is only
to
is
literally,
specifically used for monetary.
literally, yes, to literally appraise something is to give it a value based on certain facts. But figuratively, in, let's say, in speech, rhetoric, to when you appraise an idea, you decide whether or not that idea is valuable or not that idea is valuable. So, okay, I give you an idea. You use the things that you know about this subject to decide whether or not that's a good idea or not, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what appraising an idea would mean. So think about giving something value, or it doesn't have to be a yes or no. It doesn't have to be not valuable or valuable. You could say, okay, this is kind of useful. This is kind of useful, but not super useful, right?
Mm-hmm.
So to appraise is like to judge, basically.
To judge. But
Yeah,
normally we give value for something.
correct.
Oh, okay. Right. Not
Okay.
because a little bit blur with the idea or object. Like you say, during the auction, normally you sell off the used items. So items are basically the objects, but you are talking about like the idea, like how can you
Yeah.
sell the idea?
So that's the difference between,
Oh, you said literal and non-literal.
yeah. So
So
figurative and literal, right?
literal is used for objects, while non-literal are used for something that is abstract.
Correct. For abstract ideas, you give them a value based on the things you know about those abstract ideas.
Figurative means idea.
Yeah, correct.
Mm.
Figurative means abstract.
Figurative means abstract. Okay, got it.
Like, example, I was so scared that I peed myself. People say that, right? But they don't mean that they actually peed themselves, right? They
Mhm.
mean that, so it's figurative. If they literally peed themselves, then that would mean that they peed because they were so scared. Or um, people say LOL, right? Laugh out loud. Usually they mean that figuratively because they're not actually laughing, but they could be literal and they could actually be laughing out loud.
Mm,
Okay.
okay.
All right. So let's talk about this basic concept of Bloom's taxonomy.
Mhm.
So do you agree with it, or do you find that these educational levels are misleading?
I think the education system in this, I mean, our education system doesn't change much. Basically, it's like binge in all the you binge all the information. Binge
Yeah.
or binge in? Just
Binge.
binge. Just binge all the information and you vomit out. And the students are not creative anymore, and whatever things that we learn in school are not applicable in the workforce, I would say. Yeah,
Okay.
then
But
we only know how to memorize things, and then once I mean after a period of time, and then we tend to forget all the things that we learn. So and also the I would say the curriculum, can I say curriculum?
yeah,
Is
correct.
too packed, and then a lot of schools are forcing the students to take extra subjects so they can earn more. And then we are just trying to pass our subjects. We don't care about um, the information that we are learning. We don't care about. We just want to pass our exam. That's it. So
Got it.
yeah,
Okay, so if we're talking specifically about this pyramid, you feel like people are stuck with like recall
remember
facts and, yeah, remember and
and
maybe
understand,
understand.
but we don't really apply the knowledge. Seldom, maybe.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Okay, but let's talk specifically. Do you agree with this pyramid? Do you think that this is how learning should go? Because remember,
I
this is
don't think
just
so.
okay. So you don't think it should go remember, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, create.
Yeah, I think the others are a little bit um, misaligned. Can I say misaligned?
Sure. How would you if you were making your own taxonomy?
I think we can try to we understand first. We can look at an article to understand first. Um, we need to find our subject of interest
Hmm.
first, and then we try to understand that, and then we try to create something. Then actually this is a little bit too complicated. Like you create something, and then for me, I think it will be a two-step, um, a very simple two-step idea. Like you
Okay.
create something and then you come up with your own concept.
So create and what?
Understand and then create something.
Okay, understand and create. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, makes
So,
sense. So you disagree with the idea that there has to be this sort of rigid hierarchy in the taxonomy of learning that they're
mm-mm.
talking about here. Okay, so let's look at this table. So in the table, we have some relations between levels. So this is how Bloom's taxonomy arranges people's level, their skill level with an idea. Okay?
Mm-mm.
So can you go ahead and read the different levels? One, two, three, four, five. Just read the names of them for now.
Knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, and synthesis.
Right. Do you know all those words?
Mm-hmm. But
Okay.
I'm a little bit confused with analyze and interpret actually. Like,
Analyze is to like just take in the information,
mm-hmm.
and then interpret is to take your analysis and put it back out into the world. So analysis is just sitting there and studying and taking notes about something and like sort of seeing how the things connect. But then to interpret it would be to like think about a computer which has input.
Mm-hmm.
The computer analyzes that information, and then there's output. Output is like an interpretation. It's putting things in your own words.
This mean, is it like analysis means like you try to like find um the highest value and the lowest value, and then you try
Not
to,
necessarily. So, do you know this word? Analyze?
because in Chinese when I look for the Chinese meaning, they basically they are the same. So
Yeah.
it's very hard to know the difference.
They're different here. So, here, let's look at the definition of analyze. It means basically, I don't know why it doesn't load, but analyze means to take something and like break it down into little bits of data that you can understand. Um,
We use the
and then
data to analyze the pattern.
sure, yes, exactly. It's looking for patterns, things like that.
We
Very
make
much focus on patterns.
okay.
So I don't know why
Don't-
the dictionary
We
thing isn't
don't
working.
apply any concept that we learn, right? Well, interpret that mean we are trying to connect the data that we have collected together with knowledge that we have learned.
That's sort of analysis too.
Oh,
I would say there isn't a huge gap between the two, but
mm,
interpret is like changing that data a form that into a different form that you can understand. Um, it's sort of like transposing it.
transposing
So to transpose is to take something and place it elsewhere.
in transposing in place of
Yeah, right. In place of, correct.
in sorry, can you
Oh,
speak?
in place of what was the one we were talking about? Not translation, but interpretation.
Yeah.
It's not the same, but they sort of have the same sort of process. Like you would analyze and then you would interpret the data. Like usually this happens at the same time though. Like your teacher might say, please analyze and interpret this data. So analyze is actually thinking about it and forming connections, right? Taking abstract ideas and sort of forming connections between them and building a pattern, and then interpreting. Let's get rid of transposing. I don't want to make it super complicated. I also don't think that's a great word to use there. Okay, so analyze, you're forming a series of patterns, and then interpreting, you're taking that and you're writing something out or typing something out, giving your own printout of your knowledge that you gain through study and analysis.
Mm. Okay, I roughly get the idea of it.
They're close though. They're not super different. It's
Yeah.
just a little bit more specific.
Okay.
Think of analysis as more of an input thing. Like you're thinking about your input, the data is going into your head and you're thinking about it and drawing connections. And then interpreting it would be to put it into terms that you understand and that other people will understand.
Mm,
So,
input and output.
yeah, right. And think about this, the difference between translation and interpretation. I spelled that wrong, but whatever. Oh, no, I didn't. Okay, so translation is when you actually just change. If I translate from Mandarin, I'm taking the words and I'm just okay, if I go from Chinese to English, I'm taking the word and I'm literally keyword literally changing that word into a different language. But what about interpretation? What is the difference?
Translation, it's more on um translation has no connection, it's a fact. Like
Right.
um yeah, you
And what
just
about interpretation?
interpretation means like you have a lot of data, and then you are trying to connect all the concepts and the
No,
ideas.
you're thinking about analysis. I'm talking about something different now. I'm talking about in language. This
Or
is
language.
with
Oh,
so
okay. Interpretation means you're trying to understand the meaning.
yes, correct. So translation is just words to words, and interpretation conveys meaning. So like maybe if I just translate from Chinese,
Mm-mm.
it's not gonna make any sense. It's gonna be like I don't know, fire, fall, something, sky. But then if I interpret it, I could say like sunset or sunrise,
Mm-mm.
right? So the interpreter, his job or her job is to make sure that the meaning comes through,
Mm.
right?
So we
That's why
have
they're different.
translator and interpreter.
Right. An interpreter is someone who's actually they can change the words, right? To make it make more sense.
Like I can say I am trying to interpret the meaning of the proverbs.
Yes, correct. But you wouldn't say I'm trying to translate the meaning of the proverbs.
You say interpret, right?
Right, because you don't want to just change them into a different language. You want to do that, sure, but you don't want to stop there. You want to actually interpret it into something that makes sense and that preserves the feeling of the original.
Okay.
So translation is or interpretation is like conveying meaning. So an
Mm.
analysis would be to draw connections between ideas, and then to interpret it would be to output some sort of meaning based on those analysis, based on
Mhm.
your analysis.
Basically, input it doesn't give any meaning, while output it gives meaning.
Sorry, which one?
Input means they don't really give the meaning, while output they give meaning.
Sure. Yeah, input is just listening and forming connections in your mind or sketching them out, whatever, and then your output is what you would would write for other people to see.
Okay, that's mean. Okay, got it.
Input is your keyboard, output is your printer.
Okay, this is interesting. Wait, let me jot this down. Input is your keyboard, and then output is your printer.
Right.
Okay, all right. This is simple.
Okay, so what about we have knowledge comprehension, application analysis, and synthesis.
Mm-mm.
So here's some examples of the questions. So knowledge, recall, recognition of terms, ideas, procedure, theories. Recall or recognition of terms, ideas, procedure, theories, etc. So here's an example of a question. So what does the question say?
When is the first day of spring?
Right. So the student should be able to say, okay, it's March, whatever. I think it's March something.
Um,
Anyway, March 31st, March 21st,
oh,
right? So it's like just remembering a fact and then saying the fact again.
mm-mm.
That's knowledge.
Okay.
And you said that you don't really agree with the way that the educational system.
It makes sense though. Now if I
Right.
think that it makes sense. I mean,
Right. Um
mm,
Again, I'm not saying that this is, I'm just using it as a tool for us to look at some sort of deeper concepts and to learn some high level vocabulary. Okay, so comprehension. Translate, interpret. I'm going to let you read this because they're hard. Translate.
translate, interpret, extrapolate, but
Yeah,
not
nice.
seafood. Huh? Is it the correct pronunciation?
Correct.
Oh, okay. So extrapolate, but not see full implications or transfer to other situations. Closer to a literal translation. That's
Right. You see why I told you about translation, right? So
mm-mm.
this is just, you are interpreting, but you're not seeing everything. So it's closer to actual translation.
So
So here's the question.
okay, what does the summer solstice represent? What does it
Mhm.
mean by solstice? Like why I heard the word winter
Uh,
solstice before, but
it's a
not
it's
summer
a
solstice.
day where I believe like the day is either the shortest or the longest. It's like halfway through the summer.
Halfway through the summer? You mean the longest period?
I have to actually check this, but I believe the summer solstice is the date halfway between the season of summer. Like the center point of summer, if that
The
makes sense.
center point.
I,
Sorry, what did you
yeah,
say?
yeah. It's in the center.
In the center of a season.
Right. So summer solstice, it occurs when one of the Earth's poles has its maximum tilt towards the sun. Um,
Okay.
so it would be the longest day of the year.
Mm.
Um,
This means
but
it's going to be very, very hot. Right.
actually no, it can be. Depends on the country.
Okay.
But yeah, I guess it would commonly be a hot day.
Mm-hmm.
But it's actually that, look, here's a question that is relevant. If the longest day of the year is in June, right? June 21st, why is the northern hemisphere hottest in August? So here you have to take what you learned and come up with a new idea. Do you know the reason?
I don't know.
It's because of the atmosphere. So like remember that the atmosphere doesn't let all of the heat out. It keeps some of the heat towards the earth like a blanket. So if even though the even though the earth is getting the most sun in this day in June, it's going to keep building heat because it's trapped by the atmosphere. So there's a point where the temperatures start to go up into August, and then eventually they'll cool down as the rest of the earth sort of catches up, like as the atmosphere catches up with the movement of the earth. But there's a little bit of a delay, basically.
Oh,
Anyway, but that's not, we're not learning about science here. It's just giving examples. So application, let's go over that one. What it
Apply abstractions, general principles or methods to specific concrete situations.
right. And the example they give is
What would Earth's seasons be like if its orbit was perfectly circular?
right.
Mm,
So it's a way to get the students thinking about, okay, the Earth's orbit isn't circular, right? It's actually sort of an oval,
elliptical?
elliptical. So what if instead of this oval orbit, it had a perfectly circular orbit? Like, so the students have to think about, okay, what would it be like then?
Because it's ugly. I don't know.
It would have basically make it so that you had very equal seasons
Okay.
rather than one that's kind of warm and one that's kind of cool. Anyway, so and then analysis, right?
Mm-mm.
So what about that?
Separation of a complex idea into its constituent parts and then understanding of organization and relationship between the parts includes realizing the distinction. Distinction means difference, right?
Yeah,
Between hypothesis and fact, as well as between relevant and extraneous variables.
good. So the distinction between hypothesis and fact. So hypothesis is what?
Hypothesis means a statement that is not scientifically proven,
Right. And
and
fact would be
fact is already proven.
right.
Like after countless of experiments and
Right. Really, I guess it's theory in science. Usually they use theory. There's very few facts, right? Because a lot of times things that are facts are
Mm,
actually disproven, and then they're more like theories. A theory is not doesn't mean that it's not a true thing. It's hard to say that something's an actual fact, right?
theory
um
is something that everyone will use it for our
yeah,
reference.
a theory is something that's in science, only in science. A theory is something that has been proven by experimentation
Okay.
versus a hypothesis, which is just like, huh, well, the leaves turn yellow, and I think that's probably because of the seasons changing, right?
Mm,
It
okay.
could be true, but you didn't do any experiments to back it up.
Mm, you're
Anyway,
just guessing.
yeah, right. It's like an educated guess.
Oh, educated guess or educational guess.
Educated.
Educated. Like sometimes I'm a little bit confused with uh like because guess right is a noun and then we are supposed to put an adjective in front, isn't it? Like
Yeah.
educational is an adjective.
Yeah, it
Oh,
both are grammatically correct, but educational guess means a guess that has to do with the education, like the institution of education. Like an educational guess would be like
a
it's
guess
not
is
it's not
education.
used, but it would mean like a guess about education, whereas an educated guess is a guess by someone who's educated on that subject. Like you say,
Okay.
well, I trained on computers, so if I had to take an educated guess about the problem with your laptop, I would say that you should probably turn it off and on again, or it's a problem with the keyboard, something like that. It's like a guess that's based on some knowledge that you have.
Okay, so educational, we don't use educational because it doesn't bring benefit to other people. We use educational when something is,
No,
it
it
brings
does. We can use
educational
it that
value,
way.
right? Like educational game or educational program. It means
Yeah,
it
we use it for
gives.
that. it's educating people.
That
Don't
means
say
it brings
educated program.
educational value.
If we said educated program, it's saying that the program has finished an education, and a program can't be educated. It's impossible.
Mhm.
And the reason we make a special case for educated guess, because it's the guess. If we had to write it out fully, we would say the guess of me, an educated person, my educated guess. Like,
Mhm.
the idea is that that person is
Made by someone who is educated.
educated in that field, right? It
Okay.
doesn't mean that you completed a program of education. Like, if you were going to ask, um, okay, let's ask a plumber about your toilet. He's going to say, well, hey, plumber, why is my toilet always having problems? And he's going to say, well, my educated guess is that you probably don't clean it enough, or that the water pressure is low, or something specific.
Okay.
I get why it's confusing, because it's this
Both
is
are
a
adjectives. Like I can say like um my sisters, all of us are educated. All of us are Chinese educated.
right.
Like you put a hyphen in the middle, right? That will
That
be
would
an
that would
adjective.
mean that that would mean that you were educated by a Chinese system.
Yeah, by I'm educated in a Chinese environment.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, I get why it's confusing. Educated guess. Um, it's because the guess is made by the person who has some knowledge in the field, rather than a guess about this, like a guess that is providing education to people.
Mhm.
So, and then we have analysis. Did we do that already? Oh, no.
Mm,
So,
yeah, I guess so. Yeah, we have done this.
do you know all these words? Do you know what the constituent parts are?
Constituent means the original parts,
No,
like its origin.
not necessarily. It, it can mean that as well, but its
Individual,
meaning is the parts that make up something. So the constituent parts of
water,
um right would be
hydrogen, and
hydrogen and
oxygen.
oxygen.
Okay,
So the constituent parts.
the
Perfect.
separated parts, and then you
Right.
can
The
assemble it.
individual parts that make up a whole. Like,
Okay.
the pieces of a puzzle are its constituent parts. So you have to separate this complex idea into the pieces that make up the idea, the individual pieces,
Mhm.
and an understanding of organization and relationship between the parts. So that's analysis.
And then
What about relevant and extraneous variables?
between relevant and extraneous variables, I guess the variables is a factor, maybe, and then relevant means something that is useful, while
Yes.
extraneous means something a bonus or something extra that we don't really like emphasize on.
Yeah, it's more, I wouldn't say bonus, it's more like it's not relevant or it's not useful.
Oh, okay. So basically extraneous means like something that is um I mean like a statement that is made by somebody, but we don't really like take it into
Um,
a framework.
yeah, right. It doesn't fit within, it doesn't have any bearing on the problem that we're trying to solve.
Mm,
Extraneous variables, they're just things that don't matter for this analysis. They could
you're
matter.
still trying to like mm, consider about it again.
Hmm?
You're
Again?
trying to like consider about it again. Right.
Consider about it again. I'm not sure what you mean there.
Means like maybe the people in the past they used to try on that. They used to like experiment on that fact, the extra fact, but they disapprove it. And then
Think
you
of
are trying
think of
to
extra meaning extraneous means outside.
outside.
Yeah. So it's out. Let's say this circle.
Mm-hmm.
This circle is your analysis. Your relevant variables would be inside that circle, and your extraneous variables would be outside this circle. It's outside the scope of what you're trying to do with your analysis.
Oh,
That's don't yeah, I think you're overthinking it.
okay. That's mean
So
trying to find out
you
other
could
variables that might affect the theory.
right. Because remember that extra can mean like more, but
Okay.
it can also mean outside of.
Um, that is something that you discover.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Like extraordinary is like more than ordinary, but it's also outside of the ordinary.
Okay.
So extra is a morpheme that has,
Outside.
it has the meaning of outside. I think literally it does mean outside. I'm
Okay.
not sure on that though. You'd have to check that.
Okay.
Anyway, so and an
And
example here is what would Earth's orbit be like if its orbit Okay, we did that already. Why are seasons reversed in the southern hemisphere, which is pretty easy. Um,
I don't know. I don't
and
study.
we already talked about synthesis.
Yeah.
So synthesis is your output.
Okay.
Excuse me. Synthesis is creative mental. Do you want to read this part?
Creative mental construction of ideas and concepts from multiple sources to form complex ideas into a new, integrated, and meaningful.
It's cut off. I don't know why. It should say um, creative mental construction of ideas and concepts from multiple sources to form complex ideas into new, integrated, and meaningful concepts, I think.
Concepts. Okay. The words
So
are
it's
hard.
like making your own, it's making your own, it's your output, right? Your printer. You're coming up with your own ideas. Um, Not just your printer, because your printer's just spitting out the same thing that you input, but you're using your analysis to answer questions that require you to come up with new ideas.
Mm,
Right? Like we talked about, well, you know about the atmosphere and you know about how thermodynamics work, and you know that the sun is shining the longest in June. Um, and then you can figure out why the northern hemisphere is hottest in August. Anyway, I have to go to the eye doctor, so I got to get going. We're
yep, yep.
a little over an hour, but
Yeah.
I will see you on Wednesday. Tomorrow.
Tomorrow, right?
Yep, same time.
Tomorrow, but I thought today is Monday. Today is Tuesday, your time, right?
Right.
Your time is, yeah, it's Tuesday for me too. So
Yeah,
is it
same
tomorrow?
time.
Is it tomorrow or the next day after tomorrow?
I have you down for uh
Tomorrow, the same time, right?
yeah, 10:30 p.m.
10:30. Okay, no problem. Thank you very much. Sorry for delaying.
No problem.
All right, so
Okay.
I'll see you tomorrow.
See you.
Thank you and goodbye.
Bye bye.